Hi, I'm Dr. Mel, and welcome to another episode. Today's interview is with a fabulous teacher. Now, not just teacher, she gives a whole new meaning when it comes to inclusion, and you're going to see why. She is the author of the book, Andamio, Engaging Hispanic Families for ELL Success Using Brain-Based Learning. Now, this is the second edition, which is normally second edition means much more and improved. But in this case, I don't know how she's going to get it much better, so I can't wait to hear her story. Sorry about that. Welcome, Susan.
Hi, Mel. How are you today?
I am doing really, really good. The changing weather's got playing with my voice, but other than that, I'm doing good. And you?
And it's the same over here.
Well,
only a little hotter.
First of all, congratulations not only on your first book, but on this second edition. First of all, let's show them the cover reveal trailer. So sit tight. This book is much needed, especially in today's time when there's more inclusion, I should say, for not just minorities, but for all kids to be inclusive into education. Mm-hmm. And in your background with Title I, and for those of you who don't know what Title I is, it is a program that's in our public education systems to help underachieving kids to succeed in school. So first of all, let's talk about what you actually do for a living, Susan.
Okay, so I actually still remain a teacher, and I have a first grade bilingual classroom. So I am meeting with parents like on a daily basis. When kids come to school, when kids leave school, there is constant dialogue going. So as a teacher, I get to see today's product, which is their children, and I get to see the real stakeholders in the community where we live. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Now, we've got to know, how has been teaching during the pandemic been? I know it's different, but how's it been?
Oh my gosh. It was like, as I say in the afterword of this book, it was like a 360-degree whiplash, because from one moment to the next, the school held a staff meeting. You have to get on Google and create your site within the next 24 hours. You must have all the curriculum on it. You must have all the kids entered on it. I mean, it was an incredible change process that, shocked and stunned everybody. But having children online and at home, even the whole year where I am in the border, was an awesome experience in the process of change in education, but it was also burdensome to the stakeholders of the community, which was their parents. Very hard for them since, as I note in the book, very hard for them since their knowledge of technology is far below normal. Kids have a natural, I'd say, gene or enzyme to catching on quickly to put your code in and put your password in and get on. They do it in like far less time. But parents did suffer what everybody suffered when you look at the research nationally. And that simply was, I either don't have any bandwidth, I don't have any Wi-Fi, or I don't know how to use the devices.
Now, let's get a little bit of clarity here. We're not talking about American-born speaking parents in our culture.
No.
We're talking those that may not even be bilingual yet, that Spanish is their native language.
Spanish is the dominant language, probably 98.9% of the children who come to the schools here on the border are Spanish dominant when they come into school at pre-K level. But you know, school is not mandatory until first grade. So oftentimes, especially in this pandemic, we got children in school who had never been in school. So first grade teachers wind up being pre-K teachers, pre-K4 teachers, kindergarten teachers. Kids don't have enough ABC, phonemic awareness, what's a word, what's a sentence. It was mass chaos. It's just mass chaos. Yes. And the district here does not take on the responsibility of English as a second language for these children, wherein many other districts, especially the suburban districts, do, where children can gain much more basic social language quickly so that they can operate in an academic environment.
Well, children, you're in the first graders.
First graders.
Do they pick up our language quicker, or they suffer through it?
I have to tell you, I was in I've been in bilingual ed for 40 years, but while on the East Coast, I taught in a very large suburban center, and the diversity there runs from Chinese, Mandarin Chinese, African, Hispanic, 25% diversity in that district. And I do have to say, I had a wide diversity of children other than Latinos or Latinx. So many were Mandarin. And I find that those children do learn English much more quickly, fast, as a matter of fact. Within 5 to 6 months, they're up and speaking their basic language skills. So it's a bit of many socio economic issues. It's a bit of socio-emotional issues. It's a bit of learned helplessness with the children down here. Mm-hmm.
Knowing your background and knowing about your book, Andamio, those children, okay, I think it's imperative that not only that you engage them into learning with their peers that are English speaking, but you have a whole set of parents that will be engaged with their children, that those teachers don't necessarily speak their native language. How do you, and I know your book goes into creating a parent culture and engaging the parents, but how do you engage a parent that doesn't speak your language?
As I said, 99 flat percent is Spanish dominant. So that means the parents are Spanish dominant. In addition to that, the majority, and I would say over 50% of the parents in the district, and especially in the neighborhood where our school is, are not high school graduates or college graduates. So these are people who may have come from the rancho years ago. These are people who, before the border closed, were over here coming from inside of Mexico. And I say inside the guts of Mexico. So it's a different type of mentality. They're far less educated than even our educateds are. For the most part, to answer your question, the majority of the teachers are Hispanic. So they do speak. I'm probably one of the few non-Hispanic teachers in the district. And while I do speak Spanish and will speak to them, I often defray to one of the teacher aides that are helping us when we have dismissal or whatever, just simply so they get the picture and there's no question about the picture. So it's an interesting mix, and it happens to be that the whole border situation is like this.
Wow. People, I'm a retired educator. I was a school teacher for years and years and years. I was a principal for 14 years and moved to central office, and I had a Title I school. So I have a good, comprehension of what it was like. And I can only fathom what teaching is today between the online and keeping the kids and the faculty and the parents safe in schools with COVID right now. And, I'm just amazed, and I applaud all of you educators. Talk about first responders. Y'all are. You don't get credit as your first responders, but you really are, because you're dealing with not only health of the children in your classroom, trying to keep them safe away, from the COVID, but you also are dealing with their mental health. Have you seen a decline in, comparatively, I should say, over the years in mental health with these children? Are they experiencing depression or more anxiety? I mean, is there?
Yes, absolutely. And while I don't include a vast amount of information about this in my book, I want to address it based on your talk, because in your background, as you know, probably more than 15 years ago, Title I went from being just for SES to include all SES, which in addition.
By the way, if those of you that aren't educator, SES is English as a second language. Go ahead.
SES is lower socioeconomic status. So socioeconomic status then widened its expectation and its implementation to not just children who were poor in the community, but to all Hispanic children who were poor in a community, or all diverse children who were below a certain poverty level line in a community, and that is nationally. So that is a big issue. The second thing is, to address your question, I would say that this year specifically, our children have had to stay indoors. Now, take first graders who are 6 and 7 years old, nonetheless the pre-K 3 children, and keep them indoors for one whole year. And you will see stark raving mad parents, most specifically the moms and dads. These children, I'm noticing, only because my background allows for me to notice, that they are all trauma induced in some way, shape, or form. Something in the beginning of this shutdown affected them immediately. What's going to happen? What you have to do, wear a mask. What you have to do every single day, 5 times a day, wash your hands. What you have to do and why you have to do it this way if you want to go to school. All of these things affected the children. And I would say that our children here, and especially in discussing this with teachers and those in my school, our our children are emotional learners. So if they had a good day the day before or a good night and they had dinner, then they'll read for me the next day. If they did not, I'm sure you saw this in your school. If they did not, they are like horses that dig their feet in, and they act as if they don't remember anything. So, and what we've discovered is, parents have kept from us, oh, they had a car accident several years ago. Oh, well, that's a neurology problem. That's an issue we need to deal with under SPED. Let's talk to the vice principal about that one. Or they have a dyslexia problem. Okay, let's talk to the vice principal about this one and fill out some paperwork so we can get a dyslexia specialist over to take a look at that. So other than that, the trauma that I've seen this year has been that of parents who went back over the border and left their children, parents who have left the home, and left it with one or other of the dominant parent, children who, just don't have a memory left, that because the parents are doing all the thinking and taking them to school and picking them up and doing this and doing that. So it's difficult for them to remember one thing to the next, nonetheless, how to read. And I think that falls under mental health and memory issues.
I think it does too. And see, let's just say if there's such a thing as an average citizen, but the average citizen that's not involved in the educational system or hasn't been involved, they don't really see the repercussions, number one, like you said, of a lockdown emotionally on these young, fragile minds, as I like to call them, because they are fragile. They're like slaves right now. So it's in a way it's almost overwhelming, but it's got to be, as an educator, even more overwhelming to see the transition, because none of us our age, other than, well, maybe you and me, we lived through the polio scare.
Right.
And I was vaccinated as a child for polio, but I actually had several friends that came down with polio, and two of them died, and one remains to this day, is still alive in an aqualung from polio. So we recognize what, quote, a pandemic can do based on the polio scare, but there's really been nothing close to that for kids in schools.
No.
For the 80s, AIDS, of course, we know about the impact of AIDS, but that wasn't impacting children to make them stay at home. That wasn't impacting children. Oh, you're going to get it like tomorrow. You can go to the grocery store and get this one. You don't have to have that physical contact like AIDS,
You're exactly right.
And it's scary. How do you help, and Susan, this is an honest, earnest question. How do you help a child going through this that really doesn't even see why I need to read? I'd rather live, and I really, want my mom or my dad who is across the border, and, they're children.
Right.
I mean, how do you deal with them literally? And when I say deal, help them,
Right.
It goes beyond education. It goes now to nurturing.
Yes, and I all the teachers laugh at me because my first statement out of my mouth is always, I am not the empathic in this school. Because when I set up a classroom for ELL kids, it's very structured, and there are rules and additional rules that we put into place. We wash our hands when we come into school. We eat breakfast in the classroom. We wash our hands after breakfast. We are using technology devices during school. So we wash our technology devices at the end of school. There's rules to follow. Our children are at the stage in life where you cannot project. They know that learning to read is an important factor for them. They don't get it. But when they
Oh,
do,
they have so much going on in their life. How is it
yeah,
important to them? They're worried for their next meal and if I'm ever going to see
yes,
my mom and my dad ever again.
that's exactly right. And one of the things that I always try to remember is to keep what I respond to them about very consistent, because I want it done a certain way so that they'll learn it, since I know about the brain and what
Mhm.
memory picks up. So keeping things extremely structured. My kids go out of a first grade seemingly like 30-year-olds, as everybody has joked, because I demand that they be responsible. In other classrooms, the teachers are not close to their parents, the parents of the children in their classroom, so they don't demand, as much or anything that's of significance. I demand responsibility. Bring your backpack, bring your device, wash your hands, um, practice your reading. These are all important. But what I see, just like us on Zoom, when I see, 13 little kids on Zoom, and I see the chaos in their background, like probably after the first week of school, mute your mic was like a major issue. I don't want to hear your dog barking. I don't want to hear your baby crying in the background. I don't want to hear you. I don't want to see you dancing. I don't want to see you eating. I mean, there were rules. And once they got it, they were significantly more focused than ever before because they'd never done it. They'd never done this.
Right. I actually identify with this because, well, first of all, I have 7 grandkids, and so they're all in school. And my little granddaughter one day and her brother, the mother had something to do, so they bring them over here for me to watch. And now I'm responsible for homeschooling, meaning
Right.
on that Zoom stuff that you're talking about. I, being in the classroom for more than 20 years, whether educator, principal, central, I was floored. I was like,
Yes.
whoa, the very first check-in, not so much for the one that was in 5th grade, okay? He knew what to do, got in, signed in, did it. There wasn't much for me to do, meaning
Mhm.
other than, okay, he's doing his, classwork. Now, my little kindergartner, oh man, and her teacher, I want to do a shout out. Hi, Miss Hammond. Kudos. It was amazing because she could get all these kids, and there was like maybe 16 of them on the Zoom. And so I understand about the mute when you hit it because boy, you can hear everything and you can
Everything.
see everything. But what I found amazing watching the interaction between, my little granddaughter, her classmates, and the teacher there, it was amazing how the engagement of
Mhm.
the kids were. And
Mhm.
all of y'all need to be teachers of the year for just doing what y'all did this year. And I was just, even when it was time for their PE, she had those kids, the
Oh,
teacher came in doing jumping jacks and push-ups and
yeah.
jogging in place. And I'm sitting
Yeah.
there going,
We have spent
wow,
many a minute dancing to our ABCs, um, you know, uh,
that gets them up moving.
um, um, all of those um, really clear educational videos and programs that have helped all of us teachers have been able to reach out to all of these children in many significant ways. The hard part this year was any kid who was tactile, that did better with cut and paste and color. These children didn't get any of that or very little of that. But these children were able to, engage and try to uh, live in the moment with new ways of learning. Hold on one second. I apologize for that. My battery was running out.
Oh, no
Now,
problem.
as you say, imagine us teachers and imagine me, I'm going to be 69. We did not grow up in the era of high technology.
No,
I
we
mean,
did not.
happened and did a big rollover, um, like around 2008, 2009 with Steve Jobs and Kindle development with Jeff Bezos. So we did not have that as a natural inclination. We had to learn all
Right.
the steps. So imagine me, I'm over here trying to learn every single thing. So I went out and hired a technology coach just to help me through every single thing. And to stay relevant, in technology. This whole process this year um, is embedded in this Andamio book again, or not again, for the first time, because not many people know nationally how many families still do not have technology at home or do not have Wi-Fi, and what mother has enough time to drive over to the hotspot or sit outside of school and have kids try to do their
Right.
work. That's not the most practical um, um, strategy that some people have tried to do.
That's
But
that's a very valid point, because even in, I'm in New Orleans, Louisiana,
mhm,
but our outer skirts in the bayous, okay, it, some places don't have Wi-Fi,
no,
and the average citizen again doesn't think about those kids, that don't have access to that, how much it's impeding their own learning, especially with just online. How do you get online classes if you can't get online?
right. And then in addition to that, school districts scrambled very, very quickly before any kind of COVID money was released to them to get devices, which happen to be Chromebooks or iPads for all the kids in the district. And I have to say, we have an exceedingly organized district. When it came to this whole process, a handbook on health tips for the classroom. There was no group work like children used to see. They didn't play with any toys or any kind of educational, let's just take, for example, I love my kids to work with rods and flats and little cubes for counting numbers. None of that. I had to model everything from my document camera. One of the things that I think they organized exceptionally well was getting everybody in the lower grades to have an iPad, and everybody from first grade on up to have a Chromebook. But now these kids do not know how to handle a Chromebook, handle a computer, how to get on the computer, how to get to their sites, none of that. So there was a big gap between positive steps forward and then communication that was supposed to go with that.
Talk
Yeah.
about a educational barrier now.
Yes.
That's a true educational barrier.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as I said to the district, okay, one of the things that needs to happen, and I wrote it in the book, is, like during the summer is when we should have had online classes for all parents.
There you go.
And those online classes would teach how to enter the computer, get on Wi-Fi, go through class links to get to their little apps, how to get to the reading program. They needed it. They literally needed it. So yes, there have been many an organizational factor with many a glitch that ran in between.
Wow. Now, all of that has to do with communication of the parent. And that's exactly what your book is about, is how do you create parent engagement? So you talk about not only increasing parent engagement, with the educational system, but you talk about brain-based activities. What is that, Susan?
Okay, so many times, well, first of all, let me start from the history of my involvement with brain-based learning, and that was way back in the 90s when it first came out. And one of the things I saw, even when I was working for book publishing companies, that we cared what the teacher thought about a product because they said, oh, this would be a good product for kids, but we never talked to parents. And parents choose what they want to come to school and hear about. Over the years, this has evolved, and I chose to stay deeply in depth with brain-based learning because it neither offends their psychology, it does not bring out their socioeconomic factors, it doesn't hurt them socio-emotionally, financially, it doesn't hurt any of the factors that parents get offended about. Because as you know this from having been in schools, all parents are adults and they will respond to how they were in school to you as educators in the school, not even knowing that they're drawing on an experience that wasn't so hot for them. So it's really important for me to make the axiom of brain-based learning what I share with parents, simply because it helps them understand that, one, educationally and at home, organization is the key factor for children. Okay, so if your house is chaotic, your kid is chaotic. If you're yelling and screaming at kids, the kids are going to come to school not responding to anything except yelling and screaming. And for parents to understand what parts of the brain begin to engage themselves and for what reasons, that really draws upon their sense of being a child again. It draws upon the games that we play so that they can immerse themselves in a learning piece, really engages them in such a way that they had never thought about before. Whereas if I just go and talk to parents, it becomes, oh, here's another boring thing I have to listen to. But getting parents into a game process or up in a big round circle of knowledge, sharing something significant about a child that they have is really, really significant.
You're not, or I don't know, are you finding that parents are wanting their kids to return to the classroom, or are you finding them they rather stay home with the online learning?
Well, I have to tell you that this particular district opened the communities to face-to-face school around April 19th. And they encouraged the community to have their children come back. By then, I don't think 100% or even maybe 80% of the teachers were inoculated with the vaccine. So I sent out a letter as I do very often during the month to my parents and expressed to them that I've been vaccinated, first and second dose. Everything is very well sprayed down in our classroom. There are barriers for children. I explained to them what they needed to know. And I think I had 10 children come back into my classroom. This was significant to the principal, who stopped me and said, can you make a survey for us so that we can send it out to the parents and find out why they're not sending their children to school and what the issues might be. And so I created a survey for him to send out as the principal. But parents are expressing what we are seeing as teachers as a yes and a no. Yes, if it's safe, and no, if it's not safe. Yes, I will, but if I have to keep them home, can we be online? So, it's a mixed bag right now. And my observation of next year's start of school is going to be a mixed bag again.
Well, I know in our district, they just created a first forever online high school.
Yes, they're doing that in many locations. A first elementary school that's nothing but online. And I commend that because many kids can remain online. And my impression is they're going to learn as much as they do face-to-face or are doing face-to-face simply because the year was such an up and down roller coaster for everybody. So I think that's really an awesome step.
Wow. For those of you that may have jumped into the middle of this or whatever, I am speaking with Dr. Susan Tierno, and she is the author of the book Andamio. And the book is about engaging parents. So the learning process is a team process between the educational system and the parents in the home environment right now, whether it's even online or attending the classes.
Mm-hmm.
And Susan, you have just given us a whole new meaning to what the school, has been like over the past year. And one last question. With your book, okay,
Mm-hmm.
is it for just teachers or is it for parents too?
That's a good question. The book is for superintendents who need a change process and need their stakeholders to be closer to the community, the school community. It's for Title I directors and all their parent liaisons who have to organize bringing parents into the school process. It's for teachers who are looking for new strategies of how to communicate with their parents. But more than that, I would say I find that every time I reread my book or reread over the manuscript, there is always somebody who can learn something from this. A teacher who's in college, a teacher who's in a master's program, an administrator who needs to figure out how to, we have a whole chapter on marketing. So, I tell them, follow the steps in the chapter on marketing so that you can see, you can't just call the day before and expect your parents to be online the next day. You
Right.
can't just call the day before or put an email out and expect your parents to be there the next minute. It is a process of informing them over a couple of weeks, all the way up until right before the Zoom begins, or back before this, or until the meeting begins. You have to follow a marketing plan. So I always tell principals, the first thing you should look at is the chapter on marketing, because we gave you everything, all the tools from e-invites to how to use your social media to all calls and class dojos. To each one of these steps, you cannot just throw it on the teachers to do each and every one of those things. It has to come from your parent liaison and your people who want to talk to the parents.
Now, before we even started recording this, you alluded that you have a webinar coming up?
Yes, Absolutely.
Let's talk about that for a minute.
It's
Let's
May
plug for
19th.
that.
It's May 19th. And I do believe it's 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. Might be 6 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock. I don't know. I think Bob set it up around 7, which would give access to West Coast individuals and educators who are interested, and access to those on the East Coast as well.
Now, where can they find out more information about the webinar?
Okay, so at Andamio on Facebook.
Andamio is Andamio.
Right, and there's a website there. There's a excuse me, a page there. There's a Let's Think Kids Facebook as well. There is an Andamio press.com where you can find this information. We are looking to have as many people as possible join. I'm going to do a mini presentation and then take questions. I really want it to also be a dialogue because you get principals who are interested, you get teachers who are interested, but most of all, this was my life's work. And so to break it down into a guide on how we've gone through a major process of change in education as it moves towards hybrid learning, I would say that this is a good way for us to engage together. And I'm hoping to do these more often so that, and especially hope to do this type of thing with you more often, since Title I National Conference will be in New Orleans next year. Ooh. I think in February, I think that we're going to want to emphasize some other things that that will help as well.
Now, is there a fee for this webinar?
No fee. It's free.
There you go. It's free.
Yes.
That says a lot about who you are. And
thank you.
So I congratulate you that. But I also want to thank you for serving these particular students, because there's such a need. And you not only seem to know what you're talking about, but you do know what you're talking about, living there, been there, done that type of a thing. And I really hope that if you are a college student wanting to become a teacher, if you're a principal, if you're a teacher, like she said, a superintendent, Title I, even if you're a teacher and you're not responsible for Title I, you have Title I students in your classrooms. So I encourage you to get a hold of this book and really learn, for someone that knows how to engage this critical parent, as I call it, because it to me, it is a critical area in education for bringing in this type of parent that needs almost as much help as the student that you're teaching.
Exactly.
So, it's very important. So I commend you, Susan, for that. And thank you again for coming on Dr. Mel's Message. You have just been wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Awesome. Everybody, if you do go on Andamio press.com, you do go on Amazon, the book is such a bright yellow and red, you won't miss it. So do go on and support the process, because this is now with our political atmosphere, this is an area that that everybody is taking a look at. Everybody is making a goal.
Now, I want to make it clear also to the readers, if you go on to Amazon, the book is available. And if you happen to be a member of Kindle Unlimited, they can read it for free.
Yes.
And then if you don't have Kindle, you can still purchase the book, but it's also available in paperback. So go over to Amazon and look up Andamio. That's what I did. And and it came right up. So again, thank you, Susan, for today. and
It was
you got
awesome.
my Teacher of the Year award.
Thank you. Thank you so much.